What about cardio-metabolic conditions? So people that are coming to you with maybe a history of heart disease, maybe they have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, maybe they have type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, that's the bread and butter.
Right. What are you noticing in these patients when they're adopting your way of eating?
Well, it varies from person to person, but generally they're off their insulin and their type 2 diabetes resolves within the first few weeks or the first month. Sometimes it could take longer when a person's particularly overweight and they've taken, drugs, oral agents for a long time. But usually it's pretty quick.
How much weight would someone typically lose in that first month?
Well, the average male loses about 25 pounds, and the average overweight male, and the average female loses about 15 pounds the first month. But it depends on how heavy they are and how close they are to their ideal weight. But they usually slow down after that because they lose a lot of water weight and fluid the first month. After that, they slow down to about 10 or 12 pounds a month. But I've had a lot of people continue to lose 15 pounds a month.
Right. Once you lose 10 or 15% of body weight, a lot of people can go into remission if they have type 2 diabetes, right? If they haven't had it for too long.
It depends on the direction of travel of their weight. In other words, as long as they're eating calorically less food and their body is moving in the right direction, their diabetes could go away, but they're still overweight. They're just losing 2 pounds or 3 pounds a week. But if they start to level their weight off at a weight that's still above their ideal weight, the diabetes can start to worsen and come back again. What I'm saying right now, I consider a Nutritarian a person who's striving, eating and at their ideal weight, which is a body fat below 25% for a female, below 15% for a male, or a person who's losing weight, eating right, and moving in the direction of achieving their ideal weight. If they lost weight and they stabilize at a high weight, they're no longer doing the right thing, and they could start to have certain symptoms come back. And if they start to gain again, even if they're at a lower weight than initial weight, the gaining process could start inflammation occurring and then insulin resistance occurring and start to get more inflammatory markers coming off the fat supply. And the estrogen promoting estrogen production and insulin production. I'll give an example here, okay? A person comes into my facility and they lose 50 pounds in those first 3 months, and they leave. They lost 50 pounds. And the risk of and their diabetes is gone, and their estrogen levels are lower, their insulin production is lower, their inflammatory markers are lower, and the risk of having a heart disease or having a heart attack is 1,000 times less. And they go on a cruise ship or they go to Vegas and pig out on the big buffet and gain 10 pounds back. In the week they've gained 10 pounds back, they're still 40 pounds down from where they were initially because they lost 50 pounds. But now they're at a higher risk than they would have when they started at 50 pounds heavier because of the recent gain of 10 pounds, because of the direction of travel of their weight going up so fast. So your health and your inflammatory markers has to do with the direction of what your diet is and the weight your weight is traveling and what direction it's traveling in. Because if you start to regain weight, even if your weight is at a lower point, you still could exacerbate and worsen your condition.
Let's double click on that though, because weight regain is very common. And I've got a quote here from a Kevin Hall review on weight loss a couple of years ago. He says, in a meta-analysis of 29 long-term weight loss studies, more than half of the lost weight was regained within 2 years. And by 5 years, more than 80% of lost weight was regained.
And I'm saying that I would thought it would be a bit more than 80%, because only like 2 or 3 people out of 100 on regular diets keep weight off long-term,
So losing weight, keeping it off in the long term is difficult, right? How do you help your patients not become one of these statistics?
That's right. And that's what my career has been focused on. Really teaching people the tools, the information they need to learn to make sure they don't have that happen to them, including what I just told you, and why I even set up my retreat where people come who are with food addiction and obesity to reverse heart disease and diabetes, and they're reversing their inclination to want to eat more calories than they need too. And that's why I want them there for 2 or 3 months to do that. It's like a cocaine addictive center this is for food. You can't come off cocaine. If you stop cocaine for 2 weeks, your chance of recidivism is much higher than if you're off the cocaine for 3 months. So we're talking here about not just learning the right way to eat and having your taste muscle get stronger and learning how to make the recipes, but we're also working on a person emotionally and psychologically and intellectually to have them think differently about who they are, what their passions are in life, what they want to achieve, how they go after build their self-esteem, all looking at all the factors that create the inability to stay with a diet, and we're asking people to live differently than their peers.
In an environment which is largely set up to conspire against weight loss.
Exactly. So it requires some individual strength of character and knowledge to be able to continue to live this way. And I'm suggesting that when you have self-generated self-esteem, as opposed to externally generated self-esteem, people have much less chance of recidivism. So I have this person who, they went through eating this way. They felt lousy eating this way at the beginning because they're detoxifying and they're withdrawing from their old diet. That doesn't make them feel better. They went through a period of time where they're actually feeling better now because they spent enough time doing this, that their taste buds have improved. They're getting their strength and energy back. They lost their brain fog. They start to cultivate a like for eating this way, which they couldn't stand at the beginning, eating this way, because they wanted all the salt and sugar that they're missing. But now they got to a point where they're more comfortable eating this way. And then they go home, and it's too hard for them to do it from the peer pressure and the negativity they're getting from the people around them. And so we're trying to train them. So we're talking about self-generated self-esteem. They don't need the approval of other people. They're not looking for other people's consent or you could say promotion of approval points. You know how people, they post on Instagram, they want to have the best, they want to look the best, they want to have the best education, they want to drive the fanciest car, they want to look impressive in the way they dress. They're trying to get other people to be impressed with them, and they think that's the way they build their self-esteem. When in fact, educational achievement, having a good job, making a lot of money, doing all these things, being a successful, famous person doesn't really correlate with happiness, with your happiness quotient and your ability to stay in a happy and pleasurable life.
How do you get people to understand that when they're at the retreat?
We do. We work on this. We work on that when a person attacks you with some statement like, oh, if I had to eat that way, I'd rather be dead even. Who wants to living on carrot sticks the rest of your life, you know? So now the question is your response to protect your ego, to argue, and so you're not looked on negatively? Or is your response to show this person love and creative goodwill? Is there some creativity, intelligence in your response that is there to help this other person and have them, and it doesn't have to help them. It just has to have a purpose that you're demonstrating an attempt to try to help them. It's not about you anymore. It's how you can use your mind creatively to think of how you can be useful to this person, even if the chance of really helping them is 1 in 100. But you're building your self-esteem based on your attempt and desire to be useful to humanity or appreciate what's around you, and your ability to develop care and feelings for others, not to build your own ego and your own feeling like you're above or superior to them. So you're no longer affected by these negative insults or negative statements because you've kind of removed yourself and you say, well, why am I replying? What's the purpose of my reply? What am I really hoping for here? And with you trying to have a good effect on another person, it actually helps you. It starts to make you more connected to other people and more care about them and more feeling for them. And ultimately, your happiness has to be your ability to have emotions and care for other people as much as you in a strong manner. So we're cultivating those kind of superpowers in people, because if you look at the people that do succeed with long-term weight loss, it's people who they've become a role model, and they feel that their own becoming of a role model gives them more power to influence people positively and affect their people they come in contact with in a more favorable fashion. And they're proud of themselves for doing that.
Which is probably true. Like, people tend to follow what you do more than what you say.
Yeah, right.
From an inspiration point of view.
Right. So we're trying to inspire people to be happier in general, to appreciate the world around them. And we notice that when a person becomes more food addicted or addicted to drugs or smoking or whatever, the addictive substances and the brain's relationship with those addictive substances drive their behavior and makes them less ability to relate to the outside world and less caring and less passionate, and less, because they're driven by their desire to meet their need for addictive substances, which overtakes their desire to be useful to the external world.